First and foremost, I wish to thank those of you who have supported me, believed in me, and chosen me for this award. Since hearing that I was to receive the Gordon Davidson Award, I have felt lifted upwards by friends and colleagues who have reached out to congratulate me. Their encouragement feels profound. And isn't this the point of what we do in the theater? We connect with one another to acknowledge our common plight, share warmth and inspiration, and then go forth together. If we can step back from issues of career, projects, and ambitions for just a moment and widen our perspective, it is possible to perceive our profound and meaningful quantum entanglement with others. We do not construct ourselves by ourselves. Our character grows through the influence and interactions with others. We are not an island. Gordon Davidson is part of the root system of the American theater and a source of great nourishment for me and for the many people fortunate enough to encounter him. I venture to guess that even for those who never met him, he exerts an influence. I'm both proud and grateful to be chosen to receive the Gordon Davidson Award, and in the spirit of his pervasive influence and ongoing impact, I asked several colleagues close to Gordon the following question: what would Gordon Davidson do or say? Here I've sampled the portions of their responses that I personally relate to most, things that I too learned from him. Brian Kulick described what he called Gordon's Socratic jujitsu, or how he would diffuse difficult or confrontational situations. Brian said, quote, "When an audience member posed a provocative or aggressive question or statement, Gordon would always respond with, 'What do you mean?' The person would usually end up restating their provocative or aggressive question or statement in a little less provocative or aggressive way. To which Gordon would say, 'But what do you mean?' Which forced the person to search for other words, to which Gordon would say, 'But what does that mean?' This would go on until the person either found a more nuanced way of speaking to the issue at hand or just gave up." End quote. Robert Egan, who worked closely with Gordon at the Taper for 22 years, emailed me an immense and heartfelt treatise, which, for those who know Robert, is not unusual. Here's the part that I relate to the most personally. Quote, "My meditation about Gordon is about his humility. Since many find this surprising, since Gordon did have a pretty healthy ego and engaged the world with enthusiasm and confidence. Why humility is my Gordon meditation? Gordon never, ever regaled me or the staff with glorious tales of his past achievements. He never talked about them, never boasted about his Tony Awards, or the famous artists with whom he worked and hung out, or the multitude of honors. From day one, his vision was always forward-looking. How do we get better every day? How do we embrace excellence? How do we more deeply connect with our community? How do we address the injustice and iniquity of our time? And despite his success, his international status, Gordon showed up to every reading, every preview, every workshop, every tea, every cocktail event. And we had something going on almost every day. He was everywhere. He loved the Taper, the theater, and artists. They were family to him. And he was humble because he always wanted to grow, to be better, to move forward." End quote. In concert with Robert's comments, Lisa Peterson wrote, quote, "My primary image of Gordon is really his constant, devoted presence at the theater. He was always hopping up on the Taper stage to talk to the audience, either before the play to greet them, make them feel at home, or sometimes after, to encourage them to stay for his talk back. He was always hosting. And then, after plays, in previews, these long meetings with the writers and director around a table at the restaurant. We would hash it out. He would ask tough questions, and even though these sessions could be grueling, it always felt like he was coaching from passion. Not pressing like a producer, you know? He loved the hash out. He'd ask, "What do you want to communicate? Do you feel like you're doing that?" Always interrogating, end quote. Robert Woodruff emailed from Thailand, quote, "I had done a handful of projects for Gordon at the Taper. After coming up to see Brecht's ball at Trinity Rep, Gordon invited me to have dinner with him in New York. Very nice dinner, it turns out. Towards the end of the meal, he moved his face close to mine, looked at me deeply in the eyes, and said, 'I love you. I love your work, but I could never hire you again after seeing that production. I couldn't trust you with my audience again.' I think I loved him more after that. Never met such an honest and loving producer." End quote. Here's Che Yu, quote, "A seminal thing Gordon said, which I carried with me throughout my theater life, especially as an artistic director, was that the theater belongs to the people, and it should be the town square of the community. I've always emulated that while leading a theater and as an artist," end quote. And finally, Chuck Mee said, quote, "I've known him since about 1958 when he was selling Coca-Cola and souvenirs at the Stratford, Connecticut Shakespeare Festival. He would do whatever he needed to do to survive and work in the theater," end quote. The current root system of the American theater selected me to receive this wonderful award. I'm so honored to be part of its lineage that includes my colleagues and previous award winners Oscar Eustis, Lisa Peterson, Sorette Scott, Emily Mann, and Donald Byrd. In my own interactions with Gordon Davidson, I learned how each one of us builds a culture every time we interact with another person. And it's impossible to opt out. All we can do is decide what sort of impact and contribution we are each going to make and go forward together. Thank you.